My sister accused me of stealing her necklace just to call me a liar, and my parents kicked me out without a second thought. She had no idea I'd been paying her college tuition and covering the house bills. So I stopped every payment and walked away. What happened next? I thought family meant having each other's backs, no matter what. But last month, my own sister accused me of theft, and my parents, the very people I'd secretly kept afloat for years, threw me out of their home, believing her without a shred of doubt. It was a betrayal so deep, it carved a permanent scar on my soul. My name is Rebecca Martinez, and in 2008, I truly believed family was forever. Those words, straight from my dad, Miguel, echoed through our Sunday dinners. When everything else falls away, blood remains. And I lived by them, letting them shape every major decision I made. Growing up as the eldest in our modest Connecticut home, I saw our family's financial stability unravel during the 2008 recession. My dad's construction business, once thriving, crumbled. He declared bankruptcy, his income slashed by more than half. Then, my mom, Anna, was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Medical bills piled up, savings vanished, and they even remortgaged the house twice. My younger sister, Olivia, 7 years my junior, was largely shielded from this grim reality. My parents desperately wanted her to have a normal childhood. While I worked part-time jobs and used old textbooks, Olivia got new clothes, the latest phones, even a car for her 16th birthday. I never resented her, it wasn't her fault. But it forged a stark difference between us. I became thrifty and self-reliant, while Olivia grew to expect her needs would always be met effortlessly. After graduating with a computer science degree in 2018, I landed a great job at a growing tech company. I quickly climbed the ranks, and by 25, I was making 6 figures. I bought my own modern apartment, financially independent. But then, 3 years ago, during a casual visit home, I stumbled upon the devastating truth. I heard my dad on the phone in the garage, pleading with the mortgage company. When he hung up, I found him slumped in his truck, head in his hands, crying silently. My heart shattered. When I confronted him, the dam broke. They were 3 months behind on the mortgage. Mom's medical bills had created crushing debt, and they were using credit cards just to survive. The final blow? Olivia's acceptance into an expensive private university, $45,000 a year, a promise they couldn't keep but wouldn't break. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I offered to, temporarily, help with bills. Dad reluctantly agreed, but with one condition: Olivia must never know. It would crush her. Mom would be humiliated. So, what started as a few bills quickly snowballed. Within 6 months, I was paying their entire mortgage, all utilities, property taxes, most of Mom's medical expenses, and Olivia's full tuition. Annually, I was pouring over $70,000 into keeping them afloat, nearly 2/3 of my take-home pay. I cooked for them, brought groceries I claimed were on sale, helped Dad with repairs, drove Mom to appointments, even tutored Olivia in programming. Last Christmas, I watched my parents give Olivia a MacBook Pro, gushing that they were the best. It was my money, of course. I got a sweater and a gift card. I told myself it didn't matter. Seeing them happy was enough. That ache in my chest? I ignored it. I hoped someday they'd recognize my sacrifices. That hope, that blind faith in family, kept me going, even as my savings dwindled while Olivia's social media flaunted spring break trips and shopping sprees, all funded by me. I never imagined that one necklace would become the catalyst for destroying the very family I had bled myself dry to preserve. Sunday dinners at my parents' house were sacred. A brief illusion of our financially stable past. This particular Sunday started normally. I helped Mom with enchiladas. Dad and Olivia watched basketball. Everything felt fine until Olivia suddenly dropped her fork. "Has anyone seen my necklace?" she asked, her hand instinctively touching her bare throat. "The diamond one from my birthday. I was going to wear it, but it's not in its box." Mom suggested she might have left it out. Olivia shook her head. "No, it's too valuable. It's always in the blue velvet box." "When did you last wear it?" I asked, genuinely concerned. I knew how much it meant to her regardless of who paid. Last weekend, at Melissa's party, she replied. I definitely put it back. Dad's brow furrowed. Are you sure? You were pretty tipsy. I wasn't that drunk, she protested. I remember putting it away. Dinner was abandoned. We all searched. I followed Olivia to her room, helping her frantically check every nook and cranny. The more we searched, the more agitated she became. It should be here, she muttered, frustration bleeding into her voice. As the search widened to the rest of the house, I noticed a subtle shift. Olivia's eyes followed me. When I offered to check the laundry room, she snapped. I already looked there, though I knew she hadn't. Small moments, like static electricity before a storm. We returned to cold enchiladas. The conversation was stilted. Olivia, unusually quiet, suddenly asked, You were in my room earlier today, weren't you, Rebecca? Her voice had an edge I'd never heard. I paused, confused. What? No, I came straight to the kitchen. I thought I saw you coming out when I was heading upstairs. I went up to use the bathroom once, but I didn't go in your room, I explained, increasingly uncomfortable. Mom shifted. Dad glanced between us, his expression unreadable. That's strange, Olivia continued, because my door was open when I got back upstairs, and I always close it. Maybe Mom went in to put away laundry? I suggested. Mom shook her head. No, I didn't do laundry today. The implication hung in the air, heavy and foul. No one accused me outright, but the suggestion was deafening. Olivia, I said, carefully. If you're implying what I think you are, you're wrong. I had no reason to go into your room, and I definitely didn't take your necklace. She shrugged, her eyes still suspicious. I'm just trying to figure out what happened. It's an $8,000 necklace. It doesn't just disappear. Well, it didn't disappear into my pocket. I shot back, my indignation rising. Dad cleared his throat. Rebecca, no one's accusing you, he said, though his tone screamed otherwise. But you have to admit, it's a bit of a coincidence that the necklace goes missing on a day you visit. I visit twice a week every week. I replied, stunned. Are you seriously suggesting I would steal from my own sister? Of course not, Mom interjected weakly, refusing to meet my eyes. We're all just concerned. The rest of dinner passed in an agonizing silence. I drove home with a knot of nausea in my stomach. For the first time, I felt like an outsider. The people I had sacrificed everything for had just considered me, their dedicated daughter, capable of theft. It cut me to the core. Around midnight, Olivia texted, Just so you know, I've looked everywhere. It's definitely not in the house. Before I could respond, if you took it as some kind of joke, it's not funny anymore. Just give it back and we can forget about it. I typed and deleted several furious replies before sending, I didn't take your necklace, Olivia. I would never do that to you. I hope you find it soon. Her reply was instantaneous, whatever. Just know Mom and Dad are really upset. Sleep eluded me. More accusatory messages arrived. By morning, Olivia had fully convinced herself, and apparently my parents, that I was a thief. What began as a missing item had morphed into a referendum on my character. And I was failing. I decided to confront them in person. I still believed in our family's ability to communicate, to clear up misunderstandings. But when I arrived at 10 a.m., the tension was palpable. Mom was scrubbing dishes with furious energy. Dad sat grim-faced at the kitchen table, newspaper untouched. Where's Olivia? I asked, trying to sound casual. Upstairs, Dad curtly replied. She's been tearing her room apart. I took a deep breath. Look, I understand everyone's upset, but I need to make it absolutely clear that I had nothing to do with its disappearance. Before Dad could respond, Olivia appeared in the doorway. Her face was a disturbing mix of anger and what looked like triumph. Then how do you explain this? She demanded, holding up her empty blue velvet jewelry box. I found it in your old bedroom, shoved under the bookshelf. I stared, genuinely confused. That's impossible. I haven't been in that room in weeks. Well, the box didn't walk there on its own, Dad said, standing up. His voice had an aggressive edge I rarely heard, especially directed at me. Rebecca, if you're in some kind of financial trouble, you should have come to us instead of doing something like this. The sheer irony almost made me laugh. Me in financial trouble? When I was the one keeping their entire household afloat. Dad, this is ridiculous. I don't need money, and I certainly wouldn't steal from my own sister. Then how did the box get in your room? He demanded. It's not my room anymore. I haven't lived here in years. Anyone could have put it there, including Olivia, I added, letting the implication hang. Olivia gasped dramatically. Are you saying I planted it? Why would I do that? Mom finally turned from the sink. Please, let's not fight. I'm sure there's an explanation. Yes, there is. Dad's voice rose. The explanation is that someone took that necklace and the evidence points to Rebecca. My face flushed with fury and hurt. What evidence? An empty box that could have been placed by anyone? That's not evidence, that's a setup. Why would anyone want to set you up? Dad challenged. I don't know. Why would I want to steal a necklace when I make more than enough money to buy my own if I wanted one? Throughout this heated exchange, I noticed something chilling about Olivia. While she feigned distress for our parents, I caught a quick, almost imperceptible curl of satisfaction at the corner of her mouth whenever their attention was elsewhere. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, but I saw it. Let's check the security camera, I suggested. My parents had a basic system covering the front door and driveway. It would show if anyone left with something. Dad nodded stiffly, pulling up the footage. We watched my arrival, empty-handed except for groceries. My departure later, carrying only my purse and phone. The quality wasn't stellar, but it was clear I hadn't taken a distinctive jewelry box. She could have put it in her purse, Olivia insisted. My purse isn't big enough to fit that box without being obviously misshapen, I countered. Maybe you took just the necklace then, she pressed. It would fit in a pocket. Dad rubbed his temples. Rebecca, if you needed money, you could have sold it. $8,000 would solve a lot of problems. The conversation was becoming grotesquely absurd. While they speculated about my fictional financial motives, my phone buzzed. A payment reminder. Ironically, it was for their mortgage, due in 3 days. Out of habit, I authorized the $3,000 payment right there for another month of their housing. No one noticed. I didn't steal the necklace, I said, putting my phone away. I'm financially stable. Everyone has problems, Mom said softly, her eyes full of pity, implying she, too, believed me capable of this. Even successful people get into trouble sometimes. Mom, I haven't taken anything. I stared at her, deeply wounded. Then why was the box in your room? Dad demanded again, as if repetition would make it true. I told you I don't know, but there are plenty of explanations that don't involve me being a thief. As the accusations mounted, I saw Olivia typing on her phone, that faint smirk again. A terrible thought began to form. Had she engineered this? But why? Look, I said, my patience shredded. I understand the necklace is valuable and you're upset it's missing. But I've spent my entire life being honest and reliable. I've always been there for this family. Does it really make sense that I would suddenly decide to steal from you? Dad's expression hardened. People change. And sometimes we don't know someone as well as we think we do. Those words cut deeper than he could possibly know. After everything I had sacrificed, all the unseen support, my character was being questioned based on nothing but flimsy circumstantial evidence and my sister's accusations. I think you should leave until we figure this out, Dad said, finally. Your mother is upset, and your presence is just making everything worse. I looked to Mom for support, but she averted her eyes, silently accepting Dad's decision. Olivia stood in the background, and for a split second, I caught that expression again, not sadness, not confusion, but pure, unadulterated satisfaction. As I gathered my things, a profound sense of injustice washed over me. This wasn't just about a necklace. It was about trust, respect, and the crushing realization that despite everything I had done, my family would choose to believe the worst of me. Walking to my car, I saw Olivia watching from her bedroom window. Our eyes met briefly, and in that moment, I knew. This was no misunderstanding. Something calculated was at play. 3 days passed. Mom sent non-committal texts. Dad was silent. Olivia, however, had been busy. My Aunt Patricia called, Dad's sister, insisting I come for a family discussion that evening. It felt like an order, not an invitation. Everyone wants to resolve this, she explained. Your parents are very upset. I'm upset too, I replied. I've been accused of something I didn't do, and no one believes me. That's why we need to talk, Rebecca. 7. Please be there. I agreed, not out of hope for a fair hearing, but because I couldn't bear the thought of being completely estranged. I still loved them. I desperately wanted to clear my name. When I arrived, it felt less like a discussion and more like an intervention. My parents, Aunt Patricia, Uncle Robert, my cousin Michael, who never liked me, and Olivia, perched on the piano bench, eyes red as if she'd been crying. Rebecca, Dad began, this situation has gone on long enough. The necklace is still missing and all evidence points to you. What evidence? I demanded. An empty box anyone could have planted? Olivia spoke up, her voice trembling theatrically. I've been doing some research. The pawn shop downtown doesn't require ID for items under $10,000. They pay cash on the spot. The implications slammed into me. So now I hadn't just stolen it, I'd pawned it too. This is absurd. Is it? Dad challenged. You've been acting strange lately. Distracted. Checking your phone all the time. Making excuses to leave early. I almost laughed at the bitter irony. My phone checking? That was to manage their bills. The early departures? To get to my second job, which I'd taken on 6 months ago to cover Olivia's upcoming study abroad program. That doesn't prove anything, I said. Aunt Patricia leaned forward. Rebecca, honey, if you're in trouble, we want to help. But first, you need to be honest. I am being honest. I didn't take the necklace. Uncle Robert shook his head sadly. Denial only makes this harder. The conversation continued, a chorus of condemnation. No one, not for a single moment, entertained my innocence. They had already decided. Dad finally delivered his ultimatum, rising and pointing a shaking finger at me. Rebecca, I'm going to say this once. Either confess what you did with the necklace and return it, or get out of this house and don't come back until you're ready to tell the truth. I stared at him, speechless. In all my 28 years, I had never heard such coldness in his voice. Dad, I whispered, I'm your daughter. You've known me my whole life. Do you really believe I would do this? The Rebecca I raised wouldn't, he answered. But people change. I turned to Mom, who had remained silent. Mom, do you believe I did this? She looked down at her hands, twisted in her lap. Her silence was my answer. The betrayal was so profound, I could barely breathe. I had financially supported this family for years, sacrificed my own security, put my life on hold. And this was my reward. Not just disbelief, but outright condemnation. I think we should check Rebecca's car, Michael suggested suddenly. If she hasn't pawned it yet, she might still have it there. Before I could protest, Dad nodded. Good idea. Rebecca, give us your keys. This is ridiculous, I said, but found myself handing over my keys anyway, unwilling to appear uncooperative and further cement their suspicions. We trooped outside. Dad unlocked my car and began searching. Under the seats, in the glove compartment. Finally, the trunk. When he opened it, there were gasps. Partially visible under a grocery bag was the distinctive blue velvet jewelry box. I stared in shock. That's not. I didn't put that there. Dad picked up the box. Empty, of course. He turned to me, his expression a mixture of confirmation and bitter disappointment. Still going to deny it? Someone planted that. I insisted, my voice rising with desperation. I haven't even opened my trunk in days. Convenient excuse, Michael muttered. Dad slammed the trunk shut. I think we've seen enough. Rebecca, I want you to leave now. Don't contact us until you're ready to admit what you did and make it right. Dad, please. I begged, tears streaming freely. Someone is setting me up. This isn't fair. What isn't fair, he said coldly, is stealing from your own sister and lying to our faces. I raised you better than this. I looked around at their faces. Anger, disappointment, sad resignation. Only Olivia's expression seemed off. Behind the performative tears, there was something else. Satisfaction? Relief? Mom, I tried one last time. Please say something. She finally looked up, her eyes wet, but her resolve firm. Just go, Rebecca. Give us some time. Defeated and devastated, I turned to leave. As I walked away, Olivia pulled out her phone to check a notification. And in the reflection of her dark phone screen, just for an instant before she tilted it away, I saw it. The unmistakable glint of her diamond necklace, partially visible beneath her sweater collar. The realization hit me like a physical blow. She had the necklace all along. This entire drama, the accusations, the family meeting, the planted box, all of it was a deliberate setup. My own sister had orchestrated my exile from the family. I opened my mouth to expose her, but in that moment I knew it would be pointless. They had already decided I was guilty. My word against hers would change nothing, especially without tangible proof. I walked to my car in silence, feeling their eyes on my back. As I drove away from the house I had financially supported for years, tears blurred my vision so badly I had to pull over a block away. Alone in my car, I finally allowed myself to break down completely, sobbing until my throat was raw. The betrayal was absolute. Not just the false accusation, but the knowledge that my sister had deliberately engineered my downfall, and worse, that my parents, whom I had sacrificed so much for, had chosen to believe the worst of me without a moment's hesitation. I sat in darkness for hours, replaying every moment. Around midnight, Olivia texted, "Hope you're happy now. You've upset everyone." The sheer audacity of her message, after what she had done, crystallized something within me. This wasn't just about a necklace. It was about years of imbalance, of unacknowledged sacrifice, of enabling destructive family dynamics. Something had to change. And it was clear now that I would be the one to change it. I woke the next morning feeling oddly calm. The emotional storm had passed, leaving behind a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and began a systematic review of my finances. For the first time, I created a comprehensive spreadsheet detailing every dollar I had contributed to my family over the past 3 years. Mortgage payments, $108,000. Utilities, $12,600. Property taxes, $22,500. Mom's medical bills, $47,800. Olivia's tuition and expenses, $151,200. Miscellaneous support, $35,000. The grand total made me physically ill, $377,100 over 3 years. More than $250,000. Enough for a substantial down payment on a house. Enough to have fully funded my retirement accounts. Enough to have changed the trajectory of my own financial future. The spreadsheet also revealed uncomfortable truths about my current situation. My savings had dwindled to less than 2 months of living expenses. I had been making minimum payments on my own credit card. My 401k contributions were minimal. In short, I had been sacrificing my own financial health and future for a family that had just accused me of theft and thrown me out. I called Janet Perez, a financial advisor, and met with her that afternoon. Her expression was a mix of concern and disbelief. "Rebecca, this level of financial support is unsustainable. It's admirable you wanted to help, but you've put your own financial security at serious risk." "I know that now," I admitted. "But what are my options? Am I legally obligated to continue any of these payments?" She shook her head firmly. "Absolutely not. Unless you've signed contracts, which I'm guessing you haven't, you have no legal obligation to continue financial support." These were gifts. Even Olivia's tuition, she explained, couldn't be enforced against me. The mortgage was between my parents and the bank. My voluntary payments created no obligation. To be absolutely certain, I consulted an attorney, William Chin, who confirmed everything. He gently added that any moral obligation had to be weighed against their treatment of me and my own needs. Family financial support is a choice, not a requirement, especially after a significant breach of trust. Armed with this information, I returned home and began gathering evidence: bank statements, direct payment records to Olivia's university, utility bills in my parents' names with my payment confirmations. I organized everything chronologically in a binder, creating an irrefutable record. As I worked, my phone rang. An unknown number. "Rebecca, it's Melissa, Olivia's freshman year roommate. I overheard something yesterday that I think you should know about." My heart hammered. Olivia was bragging, Melissa said, about how she'd gotten rid of you. Those were her exact words. She was laughing, saying now your parents would stop comparing them to you. She mentioned hiding the necklace and making it look like you took it. The confirmation of my suspicions, instead of hurting, fueled my resolve. Thank you for telling me, Melissa. I really appreciate it. After we hung up, I sat in silence for several minutes. My sister's betrayal had been completely intentional, a calculated move. And my parents had been all too willing to believe the worst of me. With newfound determination, I systematically canceled all automatic payments. The mortgage payment scheduled for next week? Canceled. Utility auto payments? Turned off. Olivia's tuition installment? Withdrawn. For each cancellation, I documented the process and saved confirmation numbers. This wasn't just about cutting financial ties, it was about reclaiming control of my own resources and future. Next, I drafted a formal letter to my family. Factual, unemotional, detailing the exact financial support I had provided, and informing them that effective immediately, all support was terminated. I included copies of key documents, enough to make the magnitude of my support undeniable, without overwhelming them with the full binder. As I prepared to mail it, I hesitated. Was I being too harsh? Would this cause genuine hardship, especially for Mom? I thought of alternatives. Maybe just Mom's medical bills? A longer runway for them to adjust? But then I remembered their faces as they accused me, Mom's silent complicity, Dad's cold dismissal, and Olivia's satisfied smirk. No, this clean break was necessary, not just for my financial well-being, but for my emotional health. They had made their choice. Now, they would live with the consequences. I sealed the envelope, addressed it, and placed it by my door. Then I blocked Olivia's number, though I left my parents' lines open. If they wanted to apologize, I would listen. But I wouldn't subject myself to more accusations or manipulation. That night, I slept better than I had in years. The weight of unacknowledged sacrifice finally lifted. 3 days after mailing my letter, the first call came. My father, his voice a mixture of anger and panic. What the hell is this, Rebecca? Some kind of joke? It's not a joke, Dad, I replied calmly. Everything in that letter is true. I've been supporting this family financially for years, and this is how you've treated me in return. So, this is revenge because we called you out about the necklace? He practically sputtered. I almost laughed at the absurdity. This isn't revenge. It's a consequence. You chose to believe I was a thief despite everything you know about me. You threw me out of the house and the family. Why would I continue paying your bills after that? We relied on that money, he shouted. Yes, you did. Without ever acknowledging it. Without ever thanking me. Without ever even telling Olivia that her precious college education was being paid for by the sister she set up to look like a criminal. There was a long pause. What do you mean, set up? Olivia had the necklace all along, Dad. I saw it reflected in her phone screen the night you all confronted me. She deliberately hid it and planted the empty box to make me look guilty. And none of you, not one, considered that possibility. Another, longer pause. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its bluster. You can't just cut us off without warning. The mortgage is due next week. I know exactly when it's due. I've been paying it for 3 years. Your mother's medication is covered by insurance for the next 30 days. After that, you'll need to figure something out. Maybe sell some of those expensive gifts you've been giving Olivia with my money. Rebecca, be reasonable. I think I've been more than reasonable for the past 3 years. Now, I'm being fair to myself. I ended the call. It had been difficult, but nowhere near as painful as I'd anticipated. Setting boundaries, it seemed, got easier with practice. The next call came from my mother later that day. Unlike Dad, she didn't start with anger, but with tears. Rebecca, please. We just got a call from the mortgage company about a missed payment, and Olivia's university called about the tuition for next semester. I'm sorry you're in a difficult position, Mom, but those bills are your responsibility, not mine. How can you do this to us? We're your family. The guilt trip might have worked a week ago. Now, it just clarified how conditional their love had always been. Family works both ways, Mom. When one person is accused of theft and kicked out without a fair hearing, that's not family. That's a tribunal. We were upset about the necklace. People say things they don't mean when they're upset. Did Dad not mean it when he told me not to come back until I confessed to something I didn't do? Did you not mean it when you sat silently while everyone condemned me? Actions have consequences, Mom. This is the consequence of yours. After she hung up, a barrage of texts from Olivia arrived. Unlike our parents, she didn't bother with emotional appeals. Her messages were direct accusations, calling me selfish, vindictive, and worse. I read them without responding, noting how quickly her mask of victimhood had fallen away now that her comfortable lifestyle was threatened. The following week brought increasing desperation from my family. Dad left voicemails, alternating between anger and attempts at reconciliation. Mom sent tearful texts about past due notices and calls from creditors. Olivia's messages became increasingly frantic as the reality of her situation sank in. I maintained my boundaries, responding only to direct questions and refusing to engage with emotional manipulation. It wasn't easy. Years of conditioning had taught me to put their needs before my own. To be the family fixer, the reliable one. Breaking that pattern required constant vigilance against my own impulse to rescue them. 3 weeks after sending my letter, Mom asked to meet for coffee. I agreed, choosing a neutral location and a short time frame. She looked tired, with new lines around her eyes. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Of course," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "There's something you should know," she began, nervously shredding a napkin. "Olivia confessed about the necklace." I nodded, saying nothing. She had it all along. She said she was jealous of you, of how Dad always talked about how responsible and successful you are. She thought if she could make you look bad, maybe they'd stop comparing her to you all the time. "I know," I said simply. I saw the necklace reflected in her phone that night at the house. Mom's eyes widened. "You knew? Why didn't you say something? Would anyone have believed me? You had all already decided I was guilty." She looked down. "We should have trusted you. I should have trusted you. I'm so sorry, Rebecca." Her apology seemed genuine, but it came only after Olivia's confession and after weeks of financial hardship. "Thank you for telling me," I said carefully. "How are things at home?" She sighed. "Difficult. Your father had to ask for an advance at work for the mortgage. Olivia had to drop 2 classes because we couldn't pay the full tuition. She's taken a job at the campus bookstore, but it doesn't pay much." I nodded, acknowledging the information without offering help. The old Rebecca would have immediately stepped in. But I wasn't that person anymore. "And the necklace?" I asked. "She sold it," Mom admitted. "About a week after you left. She needed the money for a spring break trip she'd already committed to. She never expected you to stop paying for everything. None of us did." The irony was almost too perfect. Olivia had accused me of stealing and selling the necklace, then done exactly that herself. "I hope you understand why I had to step back," I said. "It wasn't just about the accusation. It was about years of taking my support for granted, of never acknowledging everything I was doing for the family." Mom nodded slowly. "Your father found all the payment records, the mortgage, the utilities, Olivia's tuition. We had no idea it was so much. You knew I was helping. You just never asked how much. We should have. I'm truly sorry, Rebecca. Not just for the necklace situation, but for everything. For taking advantage of your generosity for so long." We talked for another hour, more honestly than we had in years. She explained Dad's pride, how it prevented him from acknowledging their dependence. I shared my hurt. By the time we parted, something had shifted. Not forgiveness, but a step toward understanding. That evening, Dad called. His apology was less eloquent than Mom's, but seemed genuine in its awkwardness. "I was wrong about you," he gruffly admitted, "and I'm sorry for that. More sorry than I can say." Olivia was the last to reach out, sending a letter. She admitted orchestrating the whole scenario out of jealousy and resentment. "You were always the perfect one," she wrote. "I just wanted them to see you weren't so perfect after all. I never thought it would go so far. I never thought you'd stop paying for everything." Her apology, like our parents, seemed motivated at least partially by financial consequences rather than genuine remorse. Still, it was a start. In the weeks that followed, our family began the slow, awkward process of redefinition. My parents took full responsibility for their finances. Olivia reduced her course load, working part-time. I maintained my financial independence, rebuilding my savings and focusing on my own future. It wasn't easy. There were slips, attempts at manipulation, moments of resentment. But gradually, a new dynamic emerged. One based on respect rather than exploitation. Honesty rather than comfortable lies. And through it all, I discovered something unexpected, a strength I didn't know I possessed. The capacity to stand firm in my own worth. The courage to demand the respect I deserved. The clarity to recognize that real love doesn't require endless sacrifice without acknowledgement. It was a painful lesson, but perhaps a necessary one for all of us. 6 months have passed since that day. Without the constant financial drain, I've fully funded my emergency savings and increased my 401k contributions. I'm even researching investment properties, something that once seemed impossible. But financial recovery was only part of my journey. The emotional wounds ran deeper. 2 months after the confrontation, I started seeing Dr. Lena Thompson, a therapist. What your family did, she told me, was a form of emotional abuse. They exploited your generosity, took you for granted, then discarded you based on a false accusation. It's natural to feel grief, anger, and confusion. With her guidance, I began unpacking patterns, being cast as the responsible caretaker, my parents subtly encouraging Olivia's dependence while expecting self-sufficiency from me, and how I had derived my sense of worth from being needed, rather than being valued for who I was. People who consistently put others' needs before their own often struggle with guilt when they start setting boundaries, she explained. Remember that boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary for healthy relationships. Those words became my mantra. I also began building a new social circle. My family obligations had limited my friendships. Now, with time and resources, I joined a hiking club, volunteered at a coding boot camp for women, and reconnected with former colleagues. I discovered what genuine appreciation felt like. My career flourished, earning a promotion and substantial raise. For the first time, that additional income went toward my future. Our family relationship evolved, gradually and with setbacks. My parents struggled, but they adapted. Dad took on extra weekend work. Mom found a part-time job. They even downsized from the family home. 3 months after our confrontation, Olivia sent a second letter. This one demonstrated genuine self-reflection. It wasn't just jealousy, she wrote. It was knowing somewhere deep down that I didn't deserve the lifestyle I had, that I hadn't earned it the way you earned everything in your life. It was easier to tear you down than to build myself up. I'm trying to do the hard work now. I got a second job this semester. I'm actually going to all my classes. For the first time, I'm paying for things with money I earned myself, and it feels different, better somehow. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to change. Her letter touched me deeply. Not enough to resume financial support, but enough to consider rebuilding. We started with texts, then coffee. Our conversations were cautious, but a tentative new dynamic emerged. For months after the confrontation, I agreed to help my parents with a specific, limited expense, Mom's specialized medication. I made it clear this was a choice, not an obligation, and established firm boundaries. Money directly to the pharmacy, not to them. Reassessed every 3 months. And most importantly, conditional on continued respectful treatment. If there's ever another incident where my character is questioned without cause, or my generosity is taken for granted, I told them, the support ends immediately and permanently. They accepted, a sign they, too, had learned. Dad, in particular, seemed transformed. His pride had taken a hit, but once that hurdle was crossed, he demonstrated genuine humility. I always thought providing for my family made me a man, he confessed. When I couldn't do that anymore, I felt like a failure. I let you take over because it was easier than admitting I had failed. That wasn't fair to you, and I'm sorry. 5 months after the confrontation, we had our first family dinner. It was awkward, but there was a new authenticity. Without the unspoken financial arrangement, we related to each other simply as people. Olivia, now working 2 jobs, spoke about her classes with newfound enthusiasm. It feels different when you're paying for it yourself, she admitted. I actually go to every lecture now. Funny how that works. Mom shared updates about her new part-time job. Dad talked about community college courses to update his skills. Never too old to learn new tricks, he said, with a self-deprecating smile. Should have done this years ago. As I listened, I felt a complex mixture of emotions: pride in their resilience, sadness for years wasted, hope for what our relationship might become. And underneath it all, a quiet confidence in my own worth that had been missing before. The journey hasn't been easy for any of us. But through it all, we've moved towards something more honest and balanced. Today, I find myself grateful for the painful lesson that necklace incident taught me. Without it, I might have continued sacrificing my financial future indefinitely, seeking validation that would never come. I might never have discovered my own strength or learned the crucial difference between supporting others and enabling dependency. The most important thing I've learned is that true family supports each other's growth, not each other's stagnation. Real love doesn't demand constant sacrifice without recognition. And self-respect isn't selfish. It's the foundation upon which all healthy relationships must be built. If you're in a situation where your generosity is being taken for granted, where your sacrifices go unacknowledged, where your character is questioned despite your consistent actions, please know this: you deserve better. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. Standing up for yourself isn't wrong. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for others, is to stop enabling destructive patterns. I don't know what the future holds for my family. We're still navigating this new terrain, still learning how to relate to each other as equals. But whatever happens, I know I'll face it with a stronger sense of self-worth and clearer boundaries than I had before.